Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I am Silent Pink Gamer and I'm here to welcome you to the discussion of Silent Hill. So before I get started, I definitely will ask you guys to please give this video a thumbs up if you love Silent Hill or if you're a gamer. And if you're not part of that family, definitely please subscribe. And that being said, let's get into it. So remembering or the remembrance of the memory or anything about Silent Hill. So I'm just gonna tell you my experience, and this is basically just getting you guys hype for the upcoming remake of Silent Hill 2 and all the other new titles that will be added to the collection. So Silent Hill 3 was the very first Silent Hill game I ever came across. And Silent Hill 3 is it features Heather. Also some other characters is Vincent, Claudia, and so on and so forth. So when I first played Silent Hill 3, I can definitely say that was my first horror game that gave me chills. And I'm not exaggerating. If you guys remember, I definitely put some clips in. Just the whole idea of the map had me on edge. And I also had my adrenaline going through the roof. I remember the part in the beginning where you walk through the door after you went through fighting some dogs. And they had I call them daddy long legs, but that's not what they're called. So the daddy long legs are actually called closers and the dogs are called double heads. And after you get past, running around because you're at the amusement park. I'm getting excited, so I need to calm down. So of course you're at the amusement park. Of course you see Robbie the rabbit everywhere. And then you go to the door, and then that's when you encounter the closers and the double heads. And then you go through the other door when you find it. And also too, let me put that in. Spoiler alert. If you never played this game and Silent Hill is on your list and you don't want me to spoil it, please click off because there will be a lot of spoilers. Hopefully not too much, but it will be. But of course, I have to ask before you leave, give this video a like and a thumbs up and join the family if you love Silent Hill and you want to hear more about Silent Hill from me. So, thank you again for everyone who gives the video a like, and thank you. But so once you get past that, of course, there's, a part before that, before you get to the next part where you encounter the closers, and it's just like 2 or 3 of them in that one little area. And I just remember it was dark. All you have is your flashlight. And just the closers themselves, I was intrigued, but also very scared. I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. And from a person that played games like The Sims, Simpsons Hit and Run, Simpsons Road Rage, Grand Theft Auto, it's not the same when you're playing a horror game. It's really not the same. It doesn't prepare you for what you encounter. It just doesn't. And I just remember my hands were shaking. So after you get past that and go through the gate, I remember seeing these things floating in the air. I didn't know what they were. I just knew they were sharp because I somehow kept running into them. Because the controls were kind of wonky a little bit for me. And I remember seeing like one double head. And all I remember is I gotta get up the stairs. So first playing Silent Hill 3, that's what it was for me. The story also too was extremely intriguing. And don't let me forget the soundtrack. Soundtrack is so important for all games, but especially for horror games because it sets the scene, it sets the energy, and it's almost key to get the right music. If it's wrong or it's incorrect, you're gonna throw the whole game off completely. And Silent Hill 3 was known for that soundtrack. That's the opening was beautiful. So the soundtrack is so important. And the creatures that were floating in the air are called pendulums. I cannot pronounce that word, you guys. I'm pretty sure you guys are laughing at me, but don't laugh at me. And they basically, to me now, they look like flies with sharp edges, and they spin and they make this loud noise. And that's why I always say the soundtrack is so important, because you got to also get the creature's noise correct. Them walking, them biting, snarling. They're because some of them you don't even know what they're doing. They have a strange sound to where you don't know if they're growling, yelling, screaming, crying. You just don't know, and that's kind of like the peninium. You know what I'm talking about. They sound like almost like drills, like I just hear drills in my head. That's what they remind me of. Loud machinery or drills. It's creative. So after that part, you just realized, and after you do the puzzle and whatnot and get yourself on the tracks, then when I actually died on that, well, you don't necessarily die, but I do end up getting hit by the train, and I wake up and I think, oh my gosh, it's a dream. That's actually pretty dope. I'm glad I didn't die, because I was like, dang, I must suck that bad if I died on the first place, you know what I mean? But you find out it's a dream. And then you actually encounter Heather, and she calls her father. And I love that scene because, I'm very close to my parents. Rest in peace to my mom and dad. I'm extremely close. So I remember, when I'm in public or I'm going somewhere, I'm always calling my mom or dad just to let them know where I'm at. Mainly my mom, because my dad wasn't a big cell phone person. So I love that scene. And then this guy, Douglas Cartland, shows up, and of course you don't know who he is at the time, and of course he's basically just being a weirdo. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first seen this scene, I was like, oh shit, she's about to get kidnapped, something's about to happen. I was like, oh no, Heather, run. That's the first thing I thought. Heather, run. And he just he wants to talk to her, but he's being a creep about it. I'm not gonna lie, that scene was just, he was being creepy about it. I get that he was trying to be nonchalant about it and kind of undercover-ish about it, but it was just really weird. So then she eventually just goes to the restroom, and that's really where the game begins. So from there, you encounter the save point. I always fell in love with the insignia, the saving insignia. I love its design. Sometime soon, once I get it tattooed on me, I will show you guys. I love the way it looks. It's definitely came a long way from a piece of paper. That's what it was to me. Okay. and so my love for the game grew. Going through the hardships, going through the different creatures that you encounter, the puzzles were my favorite. I definitely like something that challenged my brain. I didn't know how much, especially when your life is kind of depending on it. And each encounter that you meet with a fellow human, it's they're all strange. So Silent Hill 3, other than the soundtrack and the story and the creatures, like some more of the creatures are the numb bodies. The numb bodies always remind me of chickens. Every time I see them, I'm just like, look at them chickens walking. They just look like chickens. And when you first encounter the insane cancer, and you actually encounter them when you're trying to get on the train. And I remember when he first popped up, I honestly stood there. I stood there for the longest time, because I was just kind of like, what do you want me to do with that? And I know that sounds kind of mean and rude, but not like, what do you want me to do with that? And most of the time, I honestly avoided them until I couldn't avoid them anymore. And I can definitely say when that happened, I felt accomplished. They were huge. They were intimidating to me. And time is important. And actually, another reason why it drew me to the game was I like the fact that they weren't these bright colors. They didn't have, for the most part, didn't have clothes. They were fleshy. How do you describe it? They were really fleshy. and almost tumorous. I think that's the proper word for it. Tumorous. They just look like they shouldn't be, and that's what drew me to them. And also too, they were all humanoid or animaloid in some kind of way. You can kind of relate them to something, but they weren't that either. That's what I loved about them. Their color schemes were perfect. They were reds, brownishes. Obviously they had some pinks, some tans, blacks that enhance the browns and the reds. Of course, when you get to the chapel, of course, the chapel cloisters are black. They're pitch black, and they were scary. They like this whole game literally sent me on a frenzy. And I remember I couldn't stop showing everybody this game. I was like, look at this game, look at the game, look at these creatures. And I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people were worried about me because a lot of these games, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you guys, they think it's some type of form of religion, devils, and if you're playing this game, there must be something wrong with you. Are you depressed? Are you sad? And it has nothing to do with that. I always, since a young age, I was shown horror movies, and that love went into video games. So a person that grew up with horror movies, and now I can say I am definitely a lover of horror games. That's where it came from, and that's where it stemmed from. So it's almost an insult when someone thinks that you're depressed or sad to be playing games like this. Like, why can't I just be, curious and trying something new and just like the world of horror? Doesn't have to be wrong, So I got a lot of negative feedback when I showed a few people this game, mainly the adults in my life, or even some friends or so-called friends, but that didn't stop me from beating the game. Some important parts that were parts that you just don't forget is there was a scene where you enter this door and there's only a tub and a mirror. And I'm just thinking, like one thing in horror games, you always have to search every room that's open. You never know what's in there. Not knowing that this room was a complete trap. And then I just remember I couldn't open it. And I remember just like getting upset and mad because did I mess up? Did I break the game? Is the game glitching? And I just remember seeing in the mirror my features were changing. My features were getting distorted. And I was like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong? And all I remember is I just wanted to leave. I just was like, get me out of this room, get me out of this room. And I died. I did die because you can't die on that part. So I could never beat that part. So I told myself, stay by the door and keep hitting that button until that door opened. And eventually you could. You just had to you had to leave at the right point. And I was like, I'm never going in that room. I don't care if there's a health pack. You will never catch me in there. And another important part that touched me, that was kind of you just don't forget it, is when Heather gets home and she finds out that her father is gone. That part, I cried. I definitely cried because it's your father. And I'm not gonna lie, you shouldn't do it, but I put myself in that situation and it made it 10 times worse. And, and at that time when I played it, my dad was still living. So the impact was different than it is now, so it was a touching scene. And then when she finally killed or handled the monster, it's called the Scrapper. You meet him on the roof and he's a boss battle. I was happy. I had to. I treated him like that. He was my father. That was my father. And you killed him, and I'm going to show you. And that's why I say the story is important, because you want to draw your gamers in to actually be intrigued and want more from the story and continue to play the game is so important. And that's what Silent Hill 3 was for me. The atmosphere, the story, the monsters, the characters, they were all spontaneous. They were all different, strange. It made it everything was perfect the way it was. And another touching, like another scene that you just don't forget is when you encounter Dark Alessa or your dark self. And the movie doesn't do it justice. I don't care who likes that movie. When you went up against Dark Alessa, that's not the way it went in the video game. I'm sorry, you guys. It was not the way it went. It was no hug of death. It was fight for your life scene. And I really wish they did that in the movie. And a little side note, like, I never knew they actually had a Silent Hill movie. And until I went to, it's a store that's no longer out. It was called Sun and something. It was in our mall. And I saw the first original Silent Hill movie that they made. And I was like, I never knew they made a movie. And then eventually when they made an announcement they were making another one, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta watch this. And I'm not gonna say the movie was completely horrible. Like, if you want me to talk about the movies, give this video 10 likes. And then we'll talk about this movie. But the point is, yes, let's get back to it. So, yeah. So, going against Dark Alessa on the carousel. And let me talk about this carousel, because you do see the carousel in the beginning. And that's why I say the opening was phenomenal. You can't beat that. And when you actually get back on the carousel, and I felt horrible because I didn't know how to start the carousel. So when I realized I had to hit the horses and they were making, horse noises, neighing and crying out, I didn't play the game for a couple days because I'm a big animal person too. So I was just kind of like, bro, I can't do this. And I suck it up while I was tearing up, because I felt like I was really hurting these horses, even though they already had a pole through their back, but still. And so definitely disclaimer, this video, I should have probably put this in the beginning. I will probably put this in the beginning. This video will be announcing violence, blood, gore, creatures, demons, stuff that's sensitive to certain type of people. So if you're not into that and you're underage, please leave this channel. Give this video a like before you leave, but don't stay, because it's going to be a dark conversation. It's not for anyone under the age of the appropriate age. So please leave and click off. Disclaimer, mature. So that being said, so after you hit the horses and everything starts up, I remember seeing Dark Alessa, your dark self, and I was like, bro, and at this point, like I said, this is my very first game run. I only had one health. To drink. I didn't have a second one. I had bullets, I had not, my weapons, but I only had one. So this boss battle took me a very long time to figure out a combination. I had to quickly learn, her moves, my moves, technically, because she mimics you. So, but her weapons come out the same way. She has all your weapons, and she will use them against you. And then also too, I love the way she walks. She kind of just walks like a puppet, like a doll. It's really creepy. And of course, when you defeat one, you have another one. So while you're going through this battle, I just basically try to be smart, try not to get hit, and get hit at the very least as much as possible. And I was scared when she brought out the gun. I was like, I'm about to not make this. But over time, I eventually beat Dark Alessa. And then eventually you do defeat the last boss. And talking about the last boss, she was interesting. I didn't expect them to go that route. But then again, like I said, My first horror game, I loved everything, but looking at it now too, I was kind of like, I liked it, even though she didn't really move. She had a few attacks, and she kind of just she just over, what's the word I'm looking for? She basically just draped over you. That's not the word I was looking for, but hey, I'm doing the best that I can. And I still loved it. It was simple. It wasn't over the top. And I remember beating the game, and she ended up going with Douglas. That's why I was kind of sad that he died in the movie, because it was so important. He was so important. And when he, hopefully, he took the role of her parent and, took care of her and things like that. And I loved it. I truly loved it. And it made me want to play it. So I beat the game on normal. I beat the game on hard. I couldn't get Heather out of my head. Also, too, it was the fact that you don't see a lot of women. It was women, the main protagonists. And that's what made me happy. Seeing a woman with a skirt, with some boots, and she's kicking ass and taking names. It just made me happy. I was like, yes, finally a woman. The main thing, and she wasn't overly sexualized. She wasn't naked, big titties, big, ass. She was cute, and the point got across. She was enough, and I love that. And of course, I would love to see a woman like me in a horror game, okay? But still, that's what we had at that time, and I loved it. So Silent Hill 3 was a game changer for me, because after that, all I wanted to do was play them all. And believe it or not, growing up, I didn't really have the funds to sit here and just buy games. And honestly, after me encountering Silent Hill 3, it was actually kind of hard to find a lot of other Silent Hill games. So for the longest time, I only had eventually encountering, because Silent Hill 3 was actually owned by, at that time, one of my friends' father. So it wasn't even my game. He was letting me borrow it. And I beat it and gave it back to him. So over time, I was like, dang, eventually I get it. And then from there, I end up playing and owning Silent Hill 2. So of course, Silent Hill 2 is a totally different tone than 3. And yes, I did play these games out of order. And it's just kind of how the way the situation rolled. And I know some say you should play it in order. It doesn't really affect you too much if you play it out of order. At least the first 3 games, the first 3 games are connected. So go ahead and play them in order. But like I said, in my situation, I didn't have a chance or a way to get them in order. But it still worked out fine because I know the story. So Silent Hill 2. What's so exciting now too about Silent Hill 2 is I'm actually replaying it again for the 16th, 17th, 20th time. Just to get ready for Silent Hill 2. So it can be refresh. You know what I mean? But you play as James. And I remember the opening. I love the opening for that too. No lyrics or anything. It was just soundtrack. It was just, and it was beautiful. And I love the opening where Maria's in jail and she says her speech. Let me see if I can remember it. James, honey, did something happen to you when we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else? Of course, she laughs. That I can't do it. Not that, but she laughs, and then she's like, "You remember that time in the hotel?" And then James is looking at her like, "Aren't you Maria?" So that game just has so many twists and turns, and that was part of the opening, and it's just everything else just fell in line. So in the beginning, you start off in the restroom, and he's saying that he got a letter from his dead wife, and I was kind of just confused. I was like, someone's tricking him. Somebody about to set him up because at this time, I still didn't really know the deep lore of Silent Hill. So I'm over here thinking that somebody tricked him. Somebody about to get him taken off the map for real. If someone's playing with him like that. And I remember I was also angry because you don't play with someone's dead loved ones like that. You don't sit there and just mock them and play with them like it's not a joke. So I took it very seriously. I was upset, very. So then this guy having this big heart on his sleeve, he's looking for his wife. And going through, just walking to getting to the next place that you're going to. I remember it was just really quiet. You hear sound effects, nothing too crazy. You encounter your first piece of paper in the well. And I was just like, what happened to what happened to the signal? What happened to the symbol? Like, what happened? Not thinking that this game, keep forgetting that this game was before 3, but still I was kind of like, what happened to the signal? Why didn't they, And then, you get to the cemetery and you encounter Angela, and she's, visiting or mourning, or she's just staring aimlessly at a cemetery. I thought she was visiting a loved one. And their encounter was always funny to me, even to this day, because there's a part when when James said he was, lost, and she was like, lost? Like, you just don't forget the way she responded to him. And I remember I always laughed. And to this day, me and my husband, we still laugh. Let me put my glasses on, you guys. I feel blind. So, yeah. So then, you go about your way. And I remember the fog was memorable because it was just really, really foggy, like thick fog. And not knowing that was one of Silent Hill's steeple was the fog. I was just kind of like, dang, you can't really see nothing until you come up on it. And then eventually, once you encounter your first monster, when you get to the point, you get your radio. And that's another thing about the Silent Hill games, is the radio is like a steeple. It tells you basically when you're encountering a monster or when a monster is coming up on you. So it's important. It's important. Okay. So, side note again, when I saw the open, I haven't did the video for that yet. But when I seen the radio in Townfall, I was just like, steeple. Townfall will have to do a lot with that walking, and I hope so, because like I said, it's a steeple of the game. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. So you get your radio, and then stupidly, it's like, don't you see, like, my father always told me to be aware of your surroundings. Always remember who you are, where you're going, what you see, everything. So the fact that James kind of didn't really use his noggin in this, but then again, I guess he didn't really use his noggin throughout the whole story, because you're going to a place and from a letter from your dead wife. You know what I mean? So I guess he's just not using his brain. So then he goes into this underneath the wood, and he noticed that there's somebody in there with him, straitjacket. And I remember when I seen the straitjacket, I was like, ooh, he's naked. You see little booty cheeks. You know what I mean? Little booty cheeks. And I was just like, ew, you know what I mean? But I also realized he didn't really have arms, but he did. Everything was like skin, and like it was just, I was intrigued. I wanted to know exactly what it looked like, how they was formed, design wise. That's what started my look up on creatures. That's why, no lie, watching the Silent Hill movie, I actually watched the extras and see how they made the creatures and things like that. It's very educational and very intriguing. So then, going to get some, it wasn't too bad. And then from there, you eventually get to the apartment. But one part, before you get to the apartment, when you go in to get the keys from the dead guy in the alleyway, I found it so interesting. I don't like these dudes. I can't stand these dudes. They freak me out even to this day. They were called slopers. And also, sometimes the straitjackets, when, you hit them on the ground, they also move like that. But I'm pretty sure it was a slurper. If not, then it was a straitjacket yeah. So basically, there was one hidden underneath the car underneath the van, and I didn't realize it. And then he came out, like they came out, crawling on the ground, squirming on the ground, and walked away really fast. I was like, what the, I was like, what the H was that? Like, come on now. Like, I was like, I was like, I ain't playing this game no more. Like, it just sent a different type of fear up your spine. But like I said, this is what keeps me going. This is what makes me excited. Yeah, I might not play for that couple hours, but I'll always come back to it because it keeps me intrigued. It keeps me wanting to know more. Wanted to know if it was really from his wife, and I just remember walking down the street, and I remember at one point in time, I was getting a little bored of it because I didn't know exactly where to go next before I got to the apartment. And I remember just endlessly walking down the street and running from creatures and things like that. And then I realized, hey, don't do that. So then eventually when I get to the apartment, it's dark. You didn't have a flashlight. Another red piece of paper on the wall. And then remembering the going through each floor. Oh, some doors are closed, and that's another meme from Silent Hill, that some doors are closed, some doors are open, even though in reality, if you just knock the handle out and just bust that door down, then we all good, you know what I mean? But still, some doors open, some doors are closed. And of course, there's creatures in the hallway. It was exciting. Definitely then, I always used to try to avoid the monsters to save up on health and save up on bullets. But now I always say, kill them now, and then you don't have to worry about them later. And that was my mess up when I first played the game. That was always my mess up. I always didn't want to fight them, and now it's, you got to fight them. Put them out so you can do what you got to do. So, speaking of monsters, Pyramid Head. When I first encountered Pyramid Head, he was behind the bars, chilling in the hallway. And of course, I'll put clips up. And I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what it was. I just remember a red thing, fleshy, like the movement, the texture pack that they put on the wall, especially with Silent Hill 3, especially if you're playing hard mode. And then his texture when he's red, and it just looks like something fleshy and just moving. It's hard to describe. And when I seen him, I didn't know what it was. I was like, what is that? Is it a person? It's just chilling in the back of the hallway. And other two realized, guys, this is raw. There's no script. I wanted to come off fresh from the top of my head. So some things will be mismatched. And the reason why I say mismatch is because I just remembered a monster from Silent Hill 3 that was also very exciting to me, that I will actually tell you about in just a minute after the first encounter of Pyramid Head. So after that, after you go in the room, after you, of course, it's a scene. Like, before you, after you do everything that you could do, you get to a certain point, then you hear someone scream. And that's when you go down the hallway. You see the bars, you see the red thing behind the bars, and then you go in the room. And then you notice there's a dead guy in the chair. You don't know who killed him. You see the line of blood. What's going on? And then from there on, when you encounter Pyramid Head, I remember what made me super excited about Pyramid Head. Sorry, you guys. Sorry about the yawning. I'm literally not so long just woke up, and I remember I really wanted to do this video and make it interesting for you guys and really talk about my love for Silent Hill, because my experience is not going to be Mark's experience or Jack's experience or Corey's experience or the Rat Brad's experience, you know what I mean, or Mr. Craven's. These are YouTubers that I watch. Yeah, if you're not aware, I'm pretty sure most of you guys are. They're really amazing. Go check them out. But that being said, so my experience is definitely different, and like I said, these games touched me in a really positive way. It made me more creative. It made me want to write stories. It made me inspired a lot of my drawings and things like that. So that's why I give this game a lot of praise because it was really the series, the games were really, really well done for its time. You know. So yeah, Pyramid Head made me fall in love with him due to the fact he was a creative troll. And that's what I loved about him. And also, too, the idea that the fact that he had a big triangle, I used to call him Triangle Head because his name is Pyramid Head. Or the Punisher. Whatever you prefer. Or Red Pyramid Head, you know. Red Punisher. Personal preference. And I liked his design. You know, he wasn't overly exaggerated. He was clearly a man. Or at one point in time was a man. And he had a giant sword. If you guys saw my beginning videos, I am a sword collector. I collect swords and knives and things like that. So the fact that he had this ginormous, the great sword, the great blade, was humongous. And I loved it. I remember I wanted it so bad. And someone does make it on Etsy, but he was like $500. I do not make that kind of money. So I can't. Soon, you guys, I will be getting that sword. Just watch me. I'm going to get it. Okay? But that being said, though, that's what made me fall in love. He was just right. Even though there were some scenes that were questionable. And now, looking back on the game, there's some... Let me run a theory by you guys. So, the theory is, disclaimer. Once again, I'm going to put it in. Darkness, talking about violence, blood, gore, demons, creatures, stuff that's sensitive to most people, and some things are underage, not meant for children. So please click off. This video is not for you guys. And obviously get the video a like, bugger. That's it's your sister. But that being said, just click off because it's very extremely inappropriate. So Pyramid Head, the Punisher, he is basically the reason. How can I put this? Sorry for the stuttering, you guys. So hopefully I do this correctly this time. He is the manifestation of James punishing himself from what he did. Obviously, we're not at that part yet. And so since basically the way I look at it is Pyramid Head is basically a mirror of James. He is him. And Pyramid is James. James is Pyramid. You know what I mean? So the way he's handling these monsters, the way that he is doing things that are questionable, made me feel like whenever you get to the end, you find out what happened. Maybe James was this way towards his wife, so maybe James is not as innocent as we think he is. And it's interesting when you look at it that point of view because it makes it feel like, okay, Pyramid Head's not just doing this just to do this. He's doing this because he is James. He is trying to get James to remember who he is and what he done. The Punisher, he's knocking James on his ass. He's haunting James. He's taunting James. He's hurting James, punishing him. He's a troll. And it's kind of James's karma. And I would say to this day, Pyramid Head is James's karma. And that's the way I see it. You know what I mean? And definitely in the comments, let's talk about it. Let me know what you think and how you feel. And of course, let me know how you feel about my theory. So I fell in love with him due to his design and his sword. Because who doesn't like swords, yo? So from there, when you finally go against Pyramid Head and you see the bugs, I can't stand the bugs because they bite. They bite, especially if you're not running through to avoid them. I remember I couldn't figure out what was attacking me on the floor. I was like, what's going on? And I died a couple times because I couldn't figure it out in the beginning. Until I realized there were roaches, gigantic, I call them Pyramid Head bugs, but big, gigantic roach type bugs on the floor. And I'm interested to see how they do that in Silent Hill 2. Are they going to be bigger? Not super big, of course. Small enough to where they're still smaller than me, but still big enough to where they're a threat. That's going to be interesting how they do that. So then actually going against Pyramid Head was kind of scary because I didn't know. I kept dying. I'm not going to lie. When I first played it, I kept dying a lot. And I couldn't figure out how to kill him. And then, of course, now I know you can't kill Pyramid Head. You can't kill him. So when I found out that after I used up all my bullets, and then I kept dodging him, I got to a point of the room, and then he just disappeared, and I was just like, where did he go? And now I know he walks down the stairs. But one thing, you guys, if you never played it, and like I said, we're watching this, that's your own discretion, but and that's your fault getting spoiled. But if you do get close enough, he will come back up those stairs. Don't do it. Do not do it. Obviously, if he's down far enough, he's not going to come back. But if you get to a certain point, he will come back. And I made a mistake like that before, and he attacked me, and I died. So, yeah. So, other than, oh yeah, let me talk about the creature in Silent Hill 3. Yeah, I pause for that. We're gonna clip back to 3. It's called Glutton. I remember this monster simply just because the noises. Like I said, the noises will always catch me. And I remember hearing something almost hissing, like a cat. It reminded me of a cat. And it was loud, or a snake. It was a combination, maybe of both. And I remember I got close to it. And I remember I'm not going to lie, you guys, for a good 30 hour, I was just watching it because I was like, what is it? All you see is the middle of it just twisting, just twisting. And I believe I saw a mouth, even though like in Silent Hill 3, you can't really tell if something has a mouth. You can kind of see a line or indentation that there could be one. I'm pretty sure it is one. But I just kept staring at it. It was so intriguing. It was so interesting. And also, too, with the colors, you couldn't really tell what it was. The game is dark and bloody and rusty and reds and yellows and browns and blacks and pinks to highlights. So that's another monster that really I loved. So let's get back to Silent Hill 2. So, yeah. So, from there, of course, some creatures that you encounter. So I'm definitely going to try not to mess with the pots and pans. As you can tell, I'm in a different location. But yes, so the main ones that you really encounter, the creatures, is the bubblehead nurses and the mannequins. Those are the main ones, other than Pyramid Head, of course, and the bugs. So the creatures really don't change until you get to a certain point. And also throughout the game, Pyramid Head is trolling you. He is very much trolling you. And then, of course, you get the abstract daddy and things like that. And like this whole game, I wanted to know who Laura was. I wanted to know who Eddie was. Like, Eddie was always sketchy for me. And you encounter Eddie while you're at the apartments, and he's vomiting on the toilet. And when I first met him, he reminded me of Chucky. When I first seen his face, his animations, the way they designed him, he reminded me of Chucky. Something about them was off. Especially when you first, like, you see a dead guy hanging out of the refrigerator, and then he's vomiting. And maybe he really was, maybe he just had that personality to where he would do something out of anger and frustration, and then he kind of forgets, he blocks it out, and then he's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? But when I first encountered him, I just didn't trust him. His whole personality gave me serial killer, Dahmer, Ted Bundy. Like, it just gave me serial killer. And I was just like, I'm still intrigued by your story, but like, bro, you can stay away from me real quick. So, of course, Laura was also another interesting character for me because she's a child in this, and I was always curious to figure out if they actually knew, did they see these creatures? Did they see these monsters? Like, how do you not? Especially since I'm encountering them left and right. Like, you have to be seeing this, right? And since she's a child, and my mother instincts, like, when I first played this game, I wasn't a mom. I'm a new mom. And like I said, the scenes hit differently now being a mom, because first thing I want to do is, oh my gosh, let me protect you. Let me make sure you're safe. Why are you going? Like, why are you leaving? Like, I'm an adult. Come to me, child. You talk to Eddie. Why don't you talk to me? So I just wanted to protect her. And I wanted to know who she was, what she's about, why she trusts Eddie and not me, just little things like that. And I was not gonna lie though, in the beginning I was mad because while you're in the apartment, she kicks that key from your hand. Like, yeah, girl, we're gonna have to talk about that. You know what I mean? But she's a child. You know what I mean? And the part where she's in the bowling alley with Eddie, and she says she's basically looking for Maria, and she has a letter. And I was just kind of like, wait, what? And that was kind of like a big moment because he was like, okay, now I really got to find her. What does she know? How does she know, Mary? Like, what's going on? So then another interesting character was Maria. When you encounter Maria, I'm not going to lie, she looked like a hoe. Oh. She looked like an adult entertainer. But her eyes, I just remember her eyes more so than anything. She had these crazy color looking eyes. And the eyes always say the way to the soul. And she was very flirtatious, very almost vindictive in a little way with James. And James is still acting kind of like a dunce. I hate to say it. He was kind of acting like acting brand new. And she kind of guilts him or gets him to, basically escort. And that was kind of like my second escort mission. And I hated it. I hated it because if you remember from Resident Evil 4 with Ashley, that was a whole nother thing. So playing another escort mission was not fun. And she also didn't have a weapon, so she was all on your behind, and monsters were everywhere, and she can get hurt. She can get hit. And I remember killing her. I'm pretty sure you can. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this correctly, but you can kill her. And I remember this. And I could be wrong. Like I said, my memory is at fault here. Like I said, the first time I played Silent Hill 2 and 3 was back when I was in elementary high school. Okay, so it's been years since I played it and beat it, and I'm replaying it now to refresh in my memory. And obviously, I still have the memories of beating it, so I know my little shortcuts that I do. I know, and I'll show an image of what my case looks like now. So I had my little shortcuts and things like that to get me through the game. So she's not dead. But that being said, Maria was definitely interesting. I wanted to know her story. I not as much as James though. Like that's one thing I want to stress. James' story was interesting to me. And Abstract Daddy too was interesting because that tied into Angela's story, and they didn't say this, but I'm pretty sure it's heavily implied that Daddy was not very good to her, if you get my drift. And like I said, you'll have to play the game to get to know what I mean. But you can tell she was definitely abused, Angela. And that game, I can definitely say, is dark. All the games are dark in their own way, but definitely Silent Hill 2 and 3 at that time when I first played them, those games made me really kind of almost skeptical of humans. I'm not going to even lie, because they make you think. They put you in a mindset that you only hear on Lifetime shows, really. And even though, like I said, I don't want this to ruin you and make you not want to do it, but if you really listen to the reading between the lines and the hints and the creatures and how everything is placed and what's going on, it's a really dark game. And I warn anybody, if you're gonna play it, please play it properly. For one, don't joke around about it, but also there's messages and hidden things in that game that's dark. Very dark. But that makes you want to know more. Obviously I'm not going into each detailed thing of the video games, as you can tell, but it's just my it's just my remembrance of the game. It's my experience and how I felt and things like that. Raw, by the way. Very raw. But yeah, so at the end you kind of find out that James smothered his wife. His wife was sick, ill, and as you know, in the beginning of the game, he said, Mary died from that disease, so we're thinking that she died from illness, sickness, but you find out that she was alive, not very, obviously she wasn't as healthy as she could be, and she was suffering. And James did what he thought he had to do that was best for her. And I remember seeing that scene, that whole game, that whole scene changed something in me. It completely did something else to me. I was shocked. Yes, we could sit there and say that he was trying to help his wife and he was trying to do the best that he could for her, but that's still not his place to make that choice. And it was crazy. And when he finds out, you can tell he's distraught. He's shocked, and it set the tone, And it was also sad seeing Angela walk into the fire. That, like I said, the scenes in the last part of the game was touching. It was heartstrings were pulled, definitely. And then eventually she does also become a boss at the end too. So spoiler. Another part that was interesting, that's also was very exciting, is obviously it's not going to be in order. Obviously certain parts that I said probably happened in the beginning and the end, so please don't be like, this didn't happen at this part. I know. I'm going off the top of my nagging and experience, so yeah. But do you guys remember the part where you're in the sewer and you find out that Pyramid Head is trolling you again? I remember I was scared. I was just, why is he following me? Why is he following me? What got your panties in a knot, Pyramid Head? Leave me alone. And I also remember the part where Maria is strung up and you see two Pyramid Heads. And I'm like, wait, there's two of them? They're twins? I remember that was a shocker for me because I was like, double the chaos, double the problem. So, in that whole battle, and once again, remember, you guys, you can't kill Pyramid Head. You just can't. You know what I mean? And the fact that they end up killing themselves was interesting. And that's how you just basically got to survive long enough to, and do a certain point to where eventually they end up just killing themselves or putting themselves out of commission and things like that. I can definitely say, for me, Silent Hill 2 touched differently than Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 2 was more on the heartstrings. Obviously, like I said, Silent Hill 3 was obviously still sad, with her father, but still, Silent Hill 2 had a different tone, a way different tone. Not just the music either, completely different vibes. But that's also a reason why it's really amazing, and probably one reason why it was one of the top horror games out there, because it does touch you in a different way. You have to play it. If you never did, you have to add it to your collection, the original. And I have it originally for the PlayStation 2, and I also have the HD collection. So I have them both. So that being said, you guys, that's my remembrance of the game. I definitely, like I said, Silent Hill is one of my all-time favorite games. It's actually expired my gamer tag, and I would never change it. And I'm glad I had that experience. That game was an escape for me. Obviously, it's probably a strange escape, but it was video games were escape for me. So finding something that was really, the story was beautifully told, the music was there, the creatures were there. It opened to what was in the darkness, basically. And the reason why I say that is because when I was younger, I was afraid to sleep in the dark. And it was not because the darkness itself, is just what lies within the darkness is what scared me. And I didn't know. And it also, once again, being a curious person I am, it also made me want to know. So playing Silent Hill, that was kind of like, this is what lurking in the dark. That's why whenever the game is really dark and you have your flashlight and you only see glimpse or just a little appearance in the background of a monster or a creature, it's amazing. It makes you want to play more and do more and whatnot. And that's why I feel like nowadays a lot of games, it's hard for me to get get this excited for and attached to, because the original games, like the older games, they had something. They had to bring obviously more because the graphics weren't always there completely. And so they had to bring the story, they had to bring the creatures, and they had to tie everything together. Not saying the graphics were horrible, but it was amazing for its time. But they had to bring something more. And that's what makes me feel like a lot of games nowadays have that that appeal. They lost that what's the word I'm looking for? Oh God, guys. They lost that dang. Oh my gosh. I'm just gonna say special tinge. I can't speak. They lost that special thing that made them great. You know, because now so many people are just focused on, oh, does it look realistic? Is it good? Is the graphics good? But what about the story? Is the story good? Is the characters matching? Does it feel like there's multiple stories in one? Like, does everything belong in the same universe? And there's some horror games that I personally played that was just everywhere. I didn't like it. I'm sorry. And I missed that. I wish newer games still had that same vibe that older horror games had. But that being said, though, that's Remembrance of Silent Hill 2 and 3. If you guys want Silent Hill 4 and 5, let me know. And then, of course, Homecoming and Downpour and Original Silent Hill, because yes, I do own them all, and Shattered Memories. I have them all except for the PS5 Vita game. I don't have that one. I don't know where to find that one, but I have all of them. And if you want another Silent Hill Remembrance, let me know. 20 likes on this video. Share it. Show your friends. Show everyone. And in the comments, please tell me what was your favorite part of this video. I might be end up doing a giveaway, something that's from Silent Hill-ish if I find something that's really cool. So in the comments, let me know what was your favorite Silent Hill game, what you loved about it, and please tell me what's your favorite creature in the Silent Hill franchise, all the games combined. Which one was your favorite? And thank you so much, you guys, for watching, staying tuned. I hope you watched the whole video through. If you did, you're hearing this message. And I want to say thank you so much for all the likes and views. I definitely do appreciate it. And I hopefully see you on the next video, Silent Hill video. Have a wonderful day, you guys.